911, what's your emergency?
Something's not right in my neighbor's apartment. He's been yelling at night. This has been going on for over a month. I knocked on the door to try to talk to him, but he never answers. I think someone should come over and take a look.
In my opinion, Allen was suffering from dissociative identity disorder, or paranoid schizophrenia.
This man was in direct contact with the Lord. His journal is the evidence and is as important as any found gospel.
I have no idea what happened in that apartment. What I know is this journal is unlike anything I have ever read, and probably nothing like it again. This journal takes us in his mind as he's unraveling. It's one of the most disturbing books I've ever read.
911, what's your emergency?
I'm scared. I think I need help.
It is your Classic Metal Show right here on the ClassicMetalShow.com. That's some eerie music there from King Diamond. That's the kind of stuff that I think makes you think about ghosts and everything that's evil. And the reason I played some King Diamond there was because it kind of plays into our next guest right now. Our guest is involved with publishing a journal of I'm not actually sure whose journal it is in relationship to our guest, but our guest is Brett Skolnick, and he is working to help the Kerrigan family publish a book that's out there now called Voices or God, the Journal of Allen Kerrigan. So first of all, let's start by saying welcome, Brett. How are you, man?
Hey, what's up, Chris? Thanks for having me on tonight. I'm super excited to be here.
Excellent, man. Well, Brett, I got to ask you right from the start. I have read Voices or God, the Journal of Allen Kerrigan, and I've got a lot of questions. So why don't we start with how you got involved with this project, or with getting this journal out there? Because it's I assume it's not you as much as it is something that is being published for the family, I guess, of Mr. Kerrigan.
Yeah, sure. That's a good question. So, the mother, Meredith Kerrigan, came in contact with her over a year ago, maybe close to like 18 months now, and we just started, talking about, nothing really in particular. And after a couple times speaking, she told me about her son Alan, and she told me about this journal of his that she had discovered in his apartment a few years prior, and it was a fascinating journal. It was just the topic in general just kind of blew my mind, and something I was definitely interested in. The more we kept in contact, and it seemed like this was something they wanted to go public with. I wanted to, get on board any way possible. The topic about mental health and suicide and ghosts and all types of crazy shit. It was something that really resonated with me. So I said anything I can do to help out, and they were looking for a way to self-publish the book, and I said absolutely, I can 100% help out in any way. I'm not a publisher, so I don't own a publishing company, but I work with them to gather funds to kind of make this happen, and here we are today. The book released at the beginning of the week. People are fired up about it. It's pretty interesting stuff that goes on in there.
Sure. No, and I've read most of it, as I was telling you before we got started. I have not gotten to the end yet, but the thing that, and again, it doesn't sound like you knew Alan at all. So reading it as I am right now, did it feel to you like he was sort of a somewhat normal guy that just kind of drifted away, or what was your take on him?
Yeah, 100%. Just a normal, regular, mid-20s guy working, and, just enjoying life, smoking, doing drugs, having fun with his friends, going out, blacking out, having sex. This is a regular guy. And, somewhere along the line, as you can, read within his entries, something happens in his apartment that really spooks him out, and unfortunately, he gets down in some dark places, and it gets a little heavy in there for sure. It's definitely an interesting journal. It's kind of something that you don't typically read because a journal is meant for, for you. You know, if you write, if any writer, unless you're trying to really, become a writer, but if you're just writing for yourself, you typically don't show anyone that writing. Maybe, a girlfriend or a boyfriend or, a really close friend, but typically that stuff is your personal stuff. So we're seeing, like a year's worth, 18 months worth of entries of everything he's experiencing, going out, he was a Jets fan, and this took place 7 years ago, so this is when the Jets were in the playoffs.
Okay.
So he's rooting for the Jets, as they're going off to the AFC Championship and talking shit about the Patriots and making fun of Manning. And at the same time, here he is talking about his father passing away from cancer, and then the next entry he could be talking about going out, meeting up with a girl and taking her back to his place. So it kind of goes all over the place, and then, as things, transpire, it gets, as you read, it gets pretty dark in some of those areas.
Sure. Now, from reading it, I almost wondered, reading it, if maybe part of the reason that, and again, I haven't finished it, so I don't know exactly where it's going to go, but I almost wonder if some of the reason that he started to spiral was because he was like so many people today that obsessed on the negative. And I'll put some exact examples from the book in my way of looking at it. The biggest one would be the extended journal entry that he had about 9/11, where he had some really hardcore thoughts about 9/11, and he had the quote, "We must terrorize the terrorists that terrorize the earth." That's pretty dark stuff. I almost wonder if reality was maybe pushing Allen into a place where, almost a place where you're either you're on that borderline of, sanity and insanity, no?
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to tell because it very well could be that, as the stresses of life and, there's parts in there where he really complains about his work and his job, really getting him down, his boss being up his ass. But yeah, I mean, something like that, living in New York, when 9/11 happens, and what does that do to someone's psyche? Absolutely. It is hard to tell, really, because unfortunately you're not able to sit down with Allen and really figure out what's going on in his mind. You can only see it through how very little, the journal's 180 pages, so that's all you have right there. You have that snippet of his life right then and there, but it very well could be. I mean, I know it has impacted, thousands, if not more, people, 9/11 or any other traumatic event, and also he writes about he was close with his father, and his father passing away from cancer, and kind of how his father went down that road by himself, and any one of those things could impact him for sure. Yeah, definitely.
Sure. Now, from reading the book, it seems to me too that like his life is going along like all of our lives are going along. Like we said, he's a Jets fan, or he's out and he picks up some fat chick to bang, or he's talking about pop culture stuff, and then it seems like you get in for a little while, and all of a sudden there's like a mention of hearing voices. But even that doesn't seem like kind of weird. At least to me, it didn't seem extremely weird at first. It just seemed like one of those. I mean, we've all had that experience where you're sleeping and maybe you wake up and you might have heard a voice, but you don't know if it was a dream or not. But as it goes along, those voices get louder and longer and more real. I have to wonder if one, what did you think when you read that for the first time?
It was interesting because what you just said, it just happened to me last night. I swear my son was knocking at my bedroom door. I woke up and no one was there. So, that happens to me, frequently, unfortunately. But it's, so you have your conscious, right? You have the voice inside. You have that while you're self-thinking or self-talking that is always there. But it's a fine line between, are you hearing a voice, or are you hearing, is there just an internal dialogue going on within you and you're just hearing your conscience? So it's hard to tell, it really is, because, like you said, it's just like a simple voice, really. It's just his name.
Right.
That's what he hears, his name being said to him. And then it just, there's more and more, and just it kind of keeps going and going until the point where, it just sends him over the edge. And he didn't have the tools, or he didn't really have it within him to really seek out and talk to someone about it, because he was, he was just nervous. He was really scared, like, what people would think, and
Right.
whether that's because of society or just because of his own insecurities. He didn't reach out and speak to anyone about it, unfortunately.
Sure. So his mom didn't even know about it? Is it from talking to her, did you even ask her that?
Yeah, no, she didn't. Had no clue. He writes about it in the journal, like in depth. Like, he really focused on, trying to tell his friend or trying to tell his mom. He never really would have reached out to his brother or his sister, but, one of his good friends or his mom, and he went back and forth, and it seems, there was a few times he almost did. He went to his mom's house for one weekend to get out of the apartment, and, by what he wrote, it seemed like he had a plan to tell her that weekend. And then he didn't, and, like, the voices weren't traveling on if he slept at his buddy's house or he slept at his mom's house. He didn't hear it. It was only when he was within, his apartment walls. He wasn't hearing it at work, didn't hear it on the train, didn't hear it when he was going for walks. So it was really hard for him, from what it seems like, at least, for him to, like, kind of really grasp what was going on, and then for him to then go and talk to someone. He just didn't have it in him to really seek that help. I think from what I could read, he was just scared. He didn't want to be judged, and then even, like, bringing his mother into it, it seemed like he was even concerned. He didn't want her to be judged, and he wanted to bring his family into stuff, and then what would everyone think about them, and and that's a tough pill to swallow from, a family standpoint or a friend standpoint.
Sure.
But, that just seems like that was what his reality was.
Yeah, and it just has to be almost impossible to go to family or friends and say something that would be perceived as quote-unquote crazy to most people that are just not experiencing it. But at the same time, having that daily thing just take away your, what I'll call, anchor points of your own sanity. It's got to be nuts.
No, it has to be insane, and it's interesting. One of the things that really intrigued me about this journal, besides the fact that this is just like a journal that we're really seeing inside Allen's mind, is I always used to grow up watching stuff on the History Channel about alien abductions or alien sightings, UFO sightings, like ghost sightings and stuff along those lines. And those people that, the documentary's on, or if there's interviews, those people 100% believe they've seen a ghost, or they've been abducted, or they've seen UFOs, and you cannot tell that person that they're incorrect. If whatever scientific data you have, whatever facts you have, it doesn't matter to them. That was real. They were there. They saw a ghost. They saw an alien. They saw a UFO. Whatever it might be. So then you think about it. All right, so what happens to that person? Obviously, people around them kind of look at them, a little strangely, or they don't believe them, and maybe they lose some friends, lose some family, and their network kind of gets, smaller. And now they're, maybe now with social media, I'm sure that it's easier for them to communicate with other people who have had similar experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So that's got to be super challenging for them. But now you take this to the extreme. This is this man, Allen, living in an apartment, thinking he's hearing voices, and has pretty much, convinced himself that he is hearing God speak to him. There's no from what I read, there's no back and forth dialogue. It's not like he's speaking to him or anything like that. So there's nothing really, biblical there, I guess.
Right.
But he believes he's hearing a voice of God. So, what do you do with that, right? Like, what do you really do with that if that's what you think is happening? And I know if I go to, my mother, or, my wife. I'm like, hey, I think I'm hearing voices. I'm pretty sure it's God that's speaking to me.
Right.
I don't know who's really believing me in that situation. I don't know about you.
Right. Well, and from reading, I'm like I had told you before, I'm about 2/3 of the way through so far. There's no indication up to that point that this was an overtly Christian guy. If anything, quite the opposite. He's just a run around, have fun for today, not necessarily overly spiritual guy. So for him to be thinking he's hearing the voice of God is like, it's almost like it's challenging his own belief system as well as his own sanity.
Yeah, 100%. Like, there's a full, I think there's either one or two. There's definitely one, very extensive entry that is pretty much fully, he's anti, organized religion, so he's very much not for it, and it doesn't seem, from just speaking with people that have known him, that it was a very big religious family to begin with. So, yeah, it's not like this was somebody that was raised, super Christian or super Jewish, and they were, going to either temple, they're going to church every weekend, and this just, from the information that they've learned and, their constant, being part of that religion, this could have broken off from his mind, and, there was a split somewhere along the lines. It was actually 100% the opposite. This is, there's a great entry in there where he's kind of, writing and yelling at the same time. It seems like, why are you doing this to me? There's people all over the world that would love to hear from you, that pray to you daily. I don't ever pray to you, so why on earth are you even bothering me? And, that's just got to, if you think you're hearing voices from God, that right there just has to kind of just blow your mind. What are you doing, right? Why I have no interest in talking to you, and, I don't even know why you're bothering me. So it must have been pretty crazy times.
No doubt, man. Well, now that it is out in book form, it's called Voices or God, the Journal of Allen Kerrigan. It is available on Amazon in, paperback and in ebook, correct?
Correct, yep. And you can also get it on the website as well. It's insidethejournal.com. You can get it paperback, and you can get it ebook as well. And just real quick, you can get it on Amazon, and it's a Kindle form, but you can get the Kindle app, so you don't have to have, some people think you have to have a Kindle in order to download it.
Right.
You can get the app, you can use it on your smartphone, you can use it on your laptop, whatever tablet you have, if you want, or you can get it from our site in different formats as well. Sure,
definitely. And I'm reading it on my iPad, so it definitely works quite easily. So definitely you want to check it out. It fits the CMS format to say the least, because it is definitely hard hitting, and there's no softness to this. I'm curious, now that it's out there, how does Allen's mom or his parents feel about this being out there? Because it's got to be I got to imagine it's a stressful thing to put out, your own kid's insanity being released to the masses.
I guess that's to be determined right now.
Okay.
So far, so good. Everyone's shown a lot of support. And, one of the great things we wanted to do when releasing this is we also wanted to, help raise awareness. So we are donating a percentage of the book sales to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, which is AFSP, because, people are struggling, throughout the world. And, the release of the book, is good for the family as well, because you kind of, you're never going to close that chapter, but it's kind of just giving them the opportunity to be like, all right, this is what happened, and it's almost like a release and a relief for them. But it's also to kind of, show people, what does happen when, you're by yourself and all of a sudden something starts going bad with inside your mind, or, externally, internally, doesn't really matter. And, where people can go, and maybe, this journal sheds some lights and, starts open up some sort of dialogue about mental health, or, more dialogue, should I say, about mental health, awareness, and, assisting in, suicide prevention, stuff along those lines. So that's another real goal for that, is just to kind of, put it out there and, get that, conversation going and, try to remove that stigma of mental health.
Sure. Definitely. Well, I'm endorsing this one. It is definitely a cool book. It's harsh. It's definitely not for the weak-hearted. It's definitely harsh to read, but at the same time, it is quite a journey that it takes you on. So, Brett, it's a great thing that you're involved in, and it's great that you're doing what you're doing. And the name of the book is called Voices Are God, the Journal of Allen Kerrigan. The author is Allen Kerrigan, who did indeed pen this as his journal. And what we're going to do now, Brett, is we're going to end this with a song by Ugly Kid Joe that fits the purpose of this one. It's just called God. So, Brett, thanks so much for calling into the Classic Metal Show tonight.
Chris, thanks a lot. It was a pleasure being on. Hope you guys have a good night. Thanks.
911, what's your emergency?
Something's not right in my neighbor's apartment. He's been yelling at night. This has been going on for over a month. I knocked on the door to try to talk to him, but he never answers. I think someone should come over and take a look.
In my opinion, Allen was suffering from dissociative identity disorder, or paranoid schizophrenia.
This man was in direct contact with the Lord. His journal is the evidence and is as important as any found gospel.
I have no idea what happened in that apartment. What I know is this journal is unlike anything I have ever read, and probably nothing like it again. This journal takes us in his mind as he's unraveling. It's one of the most disturbing books I've ever read.
911, what's your emergency?
I'm scared. I think I need help.